Hey everybody, thanks for being with us here today at Oregon Legacy. My name is George Carrillo, and today I have a special guest for us, and that is Senator James Manning. He is a senator that is currently running for the position of Secretary of State here in Oregon. And as we all know, that position has had a lot of controversy and some turnover throughout the years. And now there are two candidates that are going to be going head to head in this primary election on May 21st. Treasury Tobias Read and Senator Manning. So let me bring Senator Manning into this conversation here. Senator, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to be with us here today, and wanted to give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself.
George, thank you. Thank you for this great opportunity. My name is James Ivory Manning Jr. I am state senator for Senate District 7. That includes Eugene, Bonita, and a whole bunch of other farmlands in the same area. I'm also the current Senate President Pro Tem. I've been in the state Senate for 8 years, and of that time, I have passed over 124 measures that are now law here in the state of Oregon. One specifically, universal health care. I think that all Oregonians deserve quality health care, accessible health care. So it's one of the things that I'm really proud of. But I am running for the office of Secretary of State to restore the trust and integrity to the office, to protect our democracy and preserve vote by mail. I'm also here as a member of the State Land Board, once I'm elected Secretary of State, to protect, preserve, and to ensure that our public lands, waters, and public forests are not for sale. That's why I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club of Oregon, 350 Oregon, and former Congressman Peter DeFazio. Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you for being with us here today, Senator. So let's get started here. I have a question for you here. So why did you decide to run? Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Great question. I decided to run because of, we've seen over recent years how the Secretary of State office have been negatively impacted on resources that have not been fulfilling to the people's needs and wishes. For example, the last Secretary of State left under certain conditions, put it like that. And the voters have lost a lot of trust and confidence. I feel that with my record in the Senate and my time as a 24-year U.S. Army veteran, I'm the most qualified person to restore the integrity and trust to the office.
Well, thank you, Senator, for that. So can we talk a little bit about your military career? You know, there's a lot of Latinos out there like myself where, for myself, I'm a disabled veteran. There's many veterans out there, but the reality is that throughout the nation and even here in Oregon, we account for a very small percentage of that population. When you're Secretary of State, how do you see that role changing to get more people to enlist in our military?
Well, that is a great question. We're soldiers for life. That is the new mantra that's out there. Veterans, I currently chair the Interim Committee on Veterans Emergency Management, Federal and World Affairs. Recently, I attended the Army National Guard's annual conference, and one of the things that keeps coming back is veteran suicide rates. I am one of the ones that's leading the charge on there, and at this particular conference, I, as a former drill sergeant, I dropped and did 30 push-ups in order to recognize that sometimes, George, you and I should get together and do push-ups and maybe a 3-mile ruck run so that we can stay in shape. Promoting, trying to get more people involved in the military is essential to our nation.
Well, I think here, just like everywhere else, throughout the country, our veterans are hurting. They, at times, are ignored, and we don't see the value that they bring. Can you explain a little bit about your experience in the military and how that relates to you and now possibly being the next Secretary of State?
That is a great question. I served as the Chief Administrative Supervisor for the United States Army Southern Command. I was stationed in Panama at the time. So that organization, as a Chief Administrative Supervisor, I was the one that was in charge of classified, unclassified, and archived documents. One of the divisions of the Secretary of State is the Archive Division. I ensure that only correct, pertinent information was recorded and retained. Also, I served as a U.S. Army Assistant Inspector General for the United States Army Southern Command. I conducted audits nationally and internationally. My audits range from Panama, Puerto Rico to Honduras and other parts of the Southern Hemisphere. I'm an expert in that area, and I received a lot of awards and commendations for the results of my work as a U.S. Army Assistant Inspector General, which again is another critically important part of the Secretary of State's division, the Audit Division.
So Senator, we see the Secretary of State pump out a bunch of different reports on whether the state agencies are meeting the needs of the public or not. But often we see them not go anywhere. We don't see necessarily the change that's needed because that falls under the governor and the executive branches to make those changes. How will your administration be any different?
Well, one of the things that we have to realize that auditing can serve a variety of subjects. One, they can highlight those things that are working well. They can also identify those things that are not working well that needs improvement. But what's more importantly, under my administration, will be the accountability part, because it does no good to identify issues and leave them up to the agency to resolve with no accountability. I will hold every state agency and those agencies that are receiving taxpayer dollars accountable, such as I hold myself accountable. I think that's the piece that's really needed. Accountability, transparency, those things that I practiced for years in the military, those are the same values I bring forward as a legislator, and those things I would take to the office of the Secretary of State.
Thank you for that. One question I do have, and I want to give a little bit of a backstory to my question first, is I really can empathize with the previous secretary. She didn't make very much money, but neither do any of these positions, nor you as a senator or House of Representatives compared to other states. And that really does bring a problem, I believe, is because there's people that can run for office, that can afford to run for office and continue to stay in power. So what is your stance on that? Talk to me a little bit about how do we change this system? How do we get the right people in office? And how do we not pin people against, the ability to survive and be paid for their expertise, and not put the previous secretary in a position between being able to afford living as and supporting her family?
George, that is a great question. A reporter asked me or made a comment, said that the office of Secretary of State doesn't pay a lot. I reminded the reporter I served 24 years active duty United States Army. It didn't pay a lot either. Obviously for me, it's for the privilege of serving the public. I am not a politician. I am a public servant, a senior leader public servant. So we did pass a bill last year in the legislature that will go before the people to make a vote to establish a panel that will do reviews of statewide and legislative pays and come back with a calendar or a pay scale that the people will vote on and accept. It will be taken out of the hands of the legislators. I feel that we cannot give ourselves a pay raise. I think that that's not a good policy. But what I do this, George, because I am not rich. I'm the average person, working person, retired Army. I do it to inspire others, people that don't have a lot of money, to let them know that they can serve as well. It only takes, when people ask me, how do you do that? First thing I tell them is that you have to care. You have to care about people. That's what public service is about.
If we could talk a little bit about the Secretary of State position, what makes you different compared to Treasurer Reed right now? What do you believe are the ultimate differences between you and Treasurer Reed?
Well, as I mentioned previously, my years in the Oregon State Senate, I passed over 124 measures that are all law. I would challenge anybody within the same time frame to put their record up to see the work that I've done. I have worked across the aisle with my ability to communicate First time I ran, I'm current Senate President Pro Tem. First term I ran, I was elected on a bipartisan vote. Last year when I ran, I was elected unanimously. Now, let's go back a little bit about my experience in the auditing. I'm the only one that has that experience at a federal level to be able to use those items and that experience that I know to make sure that audits are conducted fair, they are by design, and that we get results and there are layers of accountability throughout the entire program. Not to mention the fact is that I'm not trying to be governor. I am running to be the Secretary of State. If I was running to be governor, I would not be an effective Secretary of State because that would not be where my heart is. So I want to make those things perfectly clear. My intentions are not to run for governor, but to serve the people of Oregon as the next Secretary of State to reinstate the integrity and trust of that office.
So do you believe that Treasurer Tobias right now is using this as a stepping stone to become the next governor?
I think that is an excellent question that should be asked of the treasurer. I know that he ran for governor in 2022. But I don't know. I don't know what his ideas are. I do know that he is terming out. He's completing 2 terms as treasurer, which is mandated by law. All statewide law offices have a 2-term limit. So I can't answer that question. I would hope that you'd ask him that question.
So, Senator, what about the support from the people? Where do you feel you're at right now with the community and your chances of becoming the next Secretary of State?
Great. My campaign is a people-powered campaign. All of my contributions and donors have been small dollar donors. My average contribution is about $44. So I voted for campaign finance reform this last time to make sure that people cannot just pay for elections. Outside, what I fear is that we're going to have that outside dark money coming in, corporate money from out of state. I've not received any corporate dollars, nor have I sought any corporate dollars. Look at the U.S. Supreme Court when they created Citizens United. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. And I have been working and talking with our federal partners to make sure that they enact legislation at the federal level to roll that back, because the average person who desires to be a public servant should be able to run for office and not have to worry about raising a lot of corporate dollars to do so. I think that takes away from it. And by the way, a good idea doesn't care who has it.
So if you're the nominee for the Democratic Party, what will be your plan in order to defeat the Republican that you'll be facing in the general election?
Excellent question. The presumptive Republican nominee, I won't mention his name, but I worked with him for years in the Senate. I can tell you he is a hardcore MAGA Republican. He tried to introduce a bill that would repeal vote by mail, which I would not allow to happen. He has some extreme views. I think that once the people see a contrast between the two of us, certainly I'll win hands down.
Do you believe that you're more electable to win than Treasurer Reed?
I certainly do. That's why I'm in this race.
Perfect. And talk to me a little bit about your relationship with Treasurer Reed. Do you think if you're the primary, would you continue working with him, and would he continue working with you?
Well, my door is open to everyone, even now in the legislature. I believe that I want to hear from all Oregonians, regardless of political persuasion, religious background, or whatever. Because again, as I've mentioned, a good idea doesn't care who has it. Whether or not Mr. Reed will want to work with me, I have no idea. That'd be a great question to ask for you. But my door is always open. I don't hold back any harmful hatred or anything. That's just not my nature. I believe that our diversity is our greatest strength, and I will continue to build on those. That is what keeps me motivated. That's why I go out to the schools and I speak to the 3rd and 4th grade children or students. I go to the universities and the community colleges because I want to hear what the people are actually talking about. I will be the state Secretary of State that continues the same pathway, going out into the community, listening to our community members. That's how I decide where I need to focus my attentions to. It's about the people. It's not about a corporation. It's about the people. How can I help make life better?
So it's 2024, and I know that sometimes during this time, we find ourselves saying there's no way that I could ever be the first of anything. It's 2024. Now, you would be the first person of color to sit in this level in this position. Do you think that Oregon is ready for that?
I believe that Oregon has become a very progressive state. I have been endorsed by progressive Democrats of Oregon because of the things that I've done to improve quality of life, police reform, universal health care, jobs and making sure prevailing wages, to expand apprenticeship programs and accessibility, to make sure that people with disabilities have the same opportunities as all Oregonians. So I do believe that is true, and that's one of the reasons that I'm running, and the support that I'm getting from all Oregonians, not just a certain group, but all Oregonians. Again, I mentioned I have a people power campaign, and everybody has been stepping up to the plate, from NAIA, from the Native tribes, from the Latinx community, from the Black BIPOC community. All have come forward with their small dollar donors, making phone calls, canvassing. I'm doing this because Oregon is ready for this change, and I am the only candidate that qualifies in this race to be the next face and to carry the banner forward for the next Oregon Secretary of State.
Thank you, Senator, for your time. That's all the time that we have for today. We really enjoyed listening to everything, learning more about you, and we wish you nothing but luck here in the May primary election, and hopefully we see you there at the general election. Congratulating you and having you as the first person of color as Secretary of State. Thank you so much.
George, I appreciate that. VoteJamesManning.com. Cast your ballots now. They're in the mail, or they should be in the house. Don't wait. Get them in. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you to everybody who's watching. Don't forget to vote. Remember, May 21st, your ballots are in the mail, and they're coming to you right now. Take the time, do your research, and make sure you vote. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day.